The internet's just, it's what it is, man. I don't know. There's all kinds of crazy shit going on. Uh, YouTube throttles it. I think over here on the China side, they're fucking playing games. It used to be that the connection for like a solid year worked fine. There was never any problems. And then Hunter Biden, sealed a $2 billion deal with Chinese power. And then he sealed a deal over Beijing Biden's kid, crackhead Hunter, sealed a deal over in Ukraine. Next thing you know, Putin's trying to kick him out. He's like, I don't want you crackheads hanging out, on my border. And so the Ukraine people are paying. They're paying the big bill for Hunter Biden. And everybody seems to be paying fucking Hunter Biden's crack bill. I'm paying it over here in China, in Beijing, He came over here and made every American look bad. Made us totally lose face. He got on his hands and knees and stuffing fucking crack rocks into a glass stick, and now everybody's paying the bill. Everybody's got to kick up their 50% to the big man, right? The Biden crime family doesn't have enough money, so the American people have to pay. Yeah, and he's got that fucking lying cunt, Jen Psaki, running her mouth every day. Just total fucking horse shit. It's so infuriating. Totally fucking infuriating, man. What a disgrace. Folks back home, you need to do something. Push for a 25th. Get that demented old coot out of there. Hold that entire administration accountable for criminal activity, man. It's so infuriating. Sic semper tyrannis. Other than that, man, my whole scene over here that I've worked so hard for 20 plus years to try to always be an upright individual in society got shot to shit by the games of the power elite, playing their games, coming over here, showing their ass. I find it disheartening to some extent that the power of the average individual has to be usurped by people that aren't even halfway intelligent. And for example, the guy right now doesn't even have his cognitive function. Anyway, I won't let it get to me. Occasionally you get upset, What are you going to do? Yeah, that's right. I got nothing against the Chinese folks on a plebeian level, right? You have to deal with each individual in their own right, because it would be racist to just say all Chinese folks are working for the Luka Luka take a leak guys. It's the internet has become so miasmic with, like, you have to be extremely careful about what you say anymore. You can't, there's just a total ban on free speech. Constantly, Kelly, I'm constantly guarded, extremely guarded in what I say. Even here online, you guys hear me rant a little bit, but not much, man. Yeah, I was watching the comparison between what's going on down south in Shanghai and the comparison with what happened over the last couple of years in Australia. And I don't see much difference in the way government is treating its people. Australia seems to be a satellite state of the Chi-Coms. Some cities in Australia, suburbs and cities like Brisbane and stuff, are 80% mainland Chinese. Same situation in Southern California. You've got entire suburbs that are not only 80% mainland Chinese from Beijing, from the north, they're 100% Entire suburbs in Southern California. 2 million folks over there. And then they claim, oh, China's the bad guy. It's like, well, wait a minute, then why are you importing 100,000 immigrants into your 100,000 legally in the U.S. and probably another 100,000 illegally? So you can't buy into it. It's the global elite. It's got nothing to do with the average man. Yeah, you're in London. You had better worry about it. That dude taught his dog to do a Heil Hitler salute on the internet, just playing games, just trying to be funny, comedic shit, like Monty Python. And they threw him in prison for a couple of years. He got disappeared. Folks get disappeared everywhere. Don't think you're safe because you're in a Western nation. They're putting plenty of praising immigrants from war-torn nations that they just attacked and bombed for 20 years in your backyard. So don't think you're outside of the game. It's being played out all around you. It's that type of mentality that gets us into this problem. No matter where you go, there you are. This is a global system of international tyranny. Nobody's safe. It's everywhere. I had some Chinese folks ask me that one time, a couple different times since I've been here. They're like, why don't you just go back to freedom-loving America? Why would you stay here in under a dictatorship? I said, dictatorships are everywhere. In the United States, I have land that I owned and purchased, and the Tennessee Valley Authority came in and took half of it, cut it right in half to put a power line across it, and didn't pay me anything, didn't ask my permission, didn't notify me. You can't own anything anywhere. Anywhere you live, they're going to take it away from you. Oh, but you guys have gun rights. You got no freedom. If you don't have any money, you don't have any freedom. How the fuck are you going to do anything? You have freedom for what? You can't go out and take any of the land in the U.S. and set up a what is it called? A homesteading. You remember the Homesteading Act from the 1800s? Fuck. You think the tyranny is any different anywhere else? Good God, I went back to the U.S. in 2019, tried to establish a career, ended up driving Uber Lyft for 6 months, and saw that the tyranny there is worse than over here. The United States has got far more tyranny than China. The Chinese folks, on paper, don't have any freedom, but in reality enjoy probably more freedom than Americans. You can't think about freedom unless you don't have to worry about housing and your rent situation and your food situation. You have to have your safety and security maintained, your food taken care of, before you can even start anything else. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can't get up to the higher elevations needs. You can't get up to the higher elevations of self-mastery and self-actualization until those lower echelons are fulfilled. And that's a huge part of it. Yeah, the tyranny here is right on the table. It's right on the table back home in the States too, though. They never there's no hiding the tyranny in the U.S. The experiment of the American freedom system has died out a long time ago. I saw it die out in the 90s. When the Clinton administration partnered with China and told them, they could immigrate millions of new communist Chinese into Southern California and gave the Chinese nuclear technology. and made China a nuclear power. That was done under Bill Clinton. The nuclear transfer of technology, the unification of Russia, China, and the United States as the three global bigwigs, that happened back in the 90s, even earlier, really. Most of it probably played out under Nixon. Well, Russ Ladd, have you ever been to China? Have you ever lived here? I spent 30 years in the U.S. and I've spent 20 plus years here in China, so I think I can compare them pretty well. But you know, whatever. You can believe whatever you want to believe. Yeah, that those videos coming out of Shanghai are more than likely just propaganda. I know a couple of people down there, and I've talked to them. They say they are under lockdown, but nobody's starving. Nobody's jumping out of fucking windows. Maybe the occasional lunatic. Yeah, the whole thing's a kill grid. If you get into the mentality of trying to compare the two, then you're just engaging in folly. They're both they're not different systems. They're handling the US differently, but it's all one system. They're not fighting with each other. That's just something they're leading you to believe. I mean, what do you think it means when all of your leaders come out? Leaders, you can't even call them leaders. When the dictators in all of the various countries, uh, the United States, Canada, look at the tyranny that played out in Canada recently, Australia. Look at the tyranny playing out in the United States. You can't even say a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. How's that for fucking mind control? When you see the tyranny playing out in those systems globally, you know something's wrong. I could break it all down. I've been through it all dozens of times. I'm not going to go back down that rabbit hole again. There's no difference. It's a new world order. This is the new normal. The same digital systems of enslavement, the digital dictatorship that has been firmly established in China is rolling out worldwide. I don't need to live somewhere to base my judgment, although I do agree it may help by your logic. You can't critique USSR because you never lived there. I can critique the USSR. I've never said anything about Russia. I've not lived there. I've visited Moscow on occasion, but I don't live there as a citizen of that nation. I don't live here as a citizen of this nation. I'm a U.S. citizen, so I live here as a guest. So I can't really tell you the way that your average individual in the countryside experiences the tyranny either. But I can tell you the way your average individual experiences tyranny living in the rural United States. I've lived in Los Angeles, San Diego. I've lived in rural areas in Tennessee. And the tyranny in the U.S. is more in your face than it is here in China. You drive around in China, as your average individual, you never see police officers. They aren't anywhere because these folks are under such heavy mind control, they don't ever break the law. You break the law, basically you end up in a work camp. You go to prison for life. There aren't any drugs in this society, hardly. There may be a little somewhere, but your average individual, 95%, isn't on pharmaceuticals and doesn't use illegal drugs. You may argue the fact, well, they don't have gun rights. There aren't any guns here. Yeah, there aren't really. I've never heard of a shooting, or I've heard of stabbings occasionally, but for the most part, the tyranny is so well established that it doesn't have to be overt. You just go through your day-to-day life. You never encounter, there aren't police presence on the streets ever. 100% of the time, you don't see traffic cops. You don't see any type of cops anywhere in the city of Beijing, anyway. Um, You don't have to deal with it ever. So it's complete. The tyranny of this nation is so complete that it's just accepted. And in the U.S., they lord it over you constantly. There's stormtroopers walking through the street carrying heaters, weapons of murder, and they lord it over you. They're in your face. We've got guns. We're policing you. You will go 5 miles over the speed limit. You're pulled over. You pay a ticket. You're always in such a desperate state of biosurvival anxiety that you can hardly function. Fucking tell me, man. I was back there in 2019 and spent 8 months trying to find a job as an educator with a master's degree in literature and 20 years experience in the industry. And because I'm a cis white male, I was offered 0 opportunity. How's that for fucking tyranny? You go where you can work, man. At least there's an advantage over here to what I am as a human being. The real tyranny is Hunter Biden, Beijing Biden. That's the real fucking tyranny right there. Criminals in government at all levels. Over here, too, I'm not saying this guy is any better. Don't know nothing about him, though. You're not allowed to talk about it. Just like you're not allowed to really talk about anything on the YouTube channel anymore either. Isn't that interesting? A supposedly freedom-loving people. And how much freedom do we have on the internet these days? How much freedom do we have on Facebook to air our grievances? How much freedom do you have at Amazon to air your grievances, right? With leaders like Bezos. You're like, I got to take a piss. I've been working 10 hours. He's like, piss in a fucking bottle, you goddamn slave. It's coming your way, man. Let me tell you. The corporatocracy, the oligarchy, the new world order, it's already there. I mean, it's coming your way. Shit. The 90s, brother. Sold out in the 90s. So Ruslat has a question about, yeah, you get treated differently when it comes to everything. You get basically a certain trough or a certain channel of jobs that can be allocated to you, such as myself, a creative arts teacher, basically an English teacher for the last 20 years. And at any given company, that's your level of achievement. You can do that, right? You can be given that job. They take you over a black man any day of the week, right? Or just as fast as they'll take a black man or any other race. But yeah, you're given that job, but you cannot rise into the level of management. You cannot elevate into any other position in the company. You can just be an ET. That's it. You can play figurehead. You can play acting positions in certain levels. They're almost, if you're a white guy, you're almost always cast as a Russian or a German agent in movies. You can never be a hero. You know, they have an extreme sense of nationalism here because they play that same game that you're playing, that you lured me into a second ago, right? Play on their emotions for their patriotism and their nationalism. That'll get them fighting amongst each other, right? That way they don't look up to the top and see how evil the guys in leadership are. It's a total game, man. It's a farce. But the general society, no, you're a foreign devil. It doesn't matter what fucking color you are. If you're not Chinese, if you're not a part of the homogeneity, how do you say that word? If you're not a part of the collective, the whole, the race of the nation, then you're just an outsider, always, forever, and never will be anything else. Their word for that is foreign devil, and you hear it. I've heard it so many hundreds of thousands of times since I've lived here, right? foreign devil. And that's from the lower levels of society, right? You know, just typical horse shit that you would experience in, say, like 1950s, 60s America. If you're an immigrant, you know, you're a foreigner. Now, you could get plenty of acting jobs. I didn't say that. I said you can get certain roles in acting. You can play the bad guy, you can play a minor role, but you can never be cast as a hero. Not in Chinese cinema. You have to be a Chinese person to be cast as a hero. You could never work your way into the political structure. You could never nationalize. China does that. China has a zero immigration policy. I couldn't go from being an American to a Chinese person. They don't allow it. As long as I live here, I'll always be considered a guest in their country. The United States should do the same thing. They shouldn't allow immigration anymore. It's done. Fucking filled up to the brim. They can't even. In the U.S., I went home. They can't even provide for the local people. You got tens of thousands of people on the streets, homeless in L.A. and every major city, shitting all over the highways. You can't even take care of that situation. You got to point your finger at someone else. Good God! Clean up your own backyard before hegemony. Thank you, Karen. Hegemony. Homogenous. You have to be a part of the hegemony, the ruling class. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know much. I don't know everything about everything. I'm like Socrates. I don't know shit, man. If you're here to fight with me, then you're gonna have plenty to fight about. I forget what part of New World Order is excluded from the world part. It seems like New World Order just means just that it's a new world order of global tyranny. Yeah, you can't really have good guy roles. You have to play the. I've worked on a few. You can find me in Chinese cinema if you look for me. I've played a few extra roles and a few minor roles, and it's nothing I'd want to do. I've got a lot of friends that do it. I know the IP man, IP man recently. Every foreigner in there works for a team that I work with called Troy's Team. You can look it up on YouTube. Troy Sanford started a stunt team to compete with Jackie Chan for the foreign talent. So Troy takes care of 90% of foreign talent in kung fu films here in China, and he's a good friend of mine. I've got lots of videos early on my channel here on YouTube where I worked with Troy's team, and I know the game. Foreigners have to know their place. You don't want to get too mouthy. Like I said, you're a guest. I go home, though, and I'm not at home either. I'm a guest in the U.S. I don't get a fucking warm welcome. I don't get Air Force Two picking me up at the airport. I don't get a $20,000 a day villa in Malibu to smoke crack rock and strangle hookers. Beijing Biden's kid does, though.